we can avoid another self-inflicted wound like we just saw over the last couple of weeks. We don't have time to play these partisan games. We've got too much work to do. Over the next several months, I hope Congress is focused on what the American people are focused on, making sure that the economy is growing.
That was President Obama earlier this evening, speaking at his 50th birthday fundraising party in Chicago. The president plans to emphasize his renewed focus on jobs with a 3-day bus tour across the Midwest, starting on August 15th. Yesterday, Obama urged Congress to follow his lead and get back to work on the economy with legislative measures like the extension of payroll tax cuts and unemployment benefits. But Republicans have already dismissed most of Obama's suggestions, and GOP leaders are distributing their own marching orders as Congress heads home for the August recess. Senate Republican Conference Chairman Lamar Alexander is sending his members off with talking points written on handy pocket cards. One side of the card tells Republicans how to sell their agenda. It says, "We'll make it better, making it easier and cheaper to create private sector jobs." The other side of the card is what Republican leaders want their members to say about President Obama. He's making it worse, a big wet blanket on the economy. Get ready to hear a lot of wet blanket talk in Republican town hall meetings this month. Meanwhile, House Republicans have released a supposedly new jobs plan, but it sounds a lot like the old policies. Deregulation, tax cuts, oil drilling, and more spending cuts. It sounds like the same old policies. Guess what? Because it is the same old policies. This plan was released in May. Now it just has a shiny new website to promote the same failed policies that got us where we are today. It'll take more than a bus tour for the president to convince these guys to play ball on job creation. With me now is James Hoffa, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Mr. Hoffa, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
Sir, what do you want to hear from President Obama on his upcoming jobs tour of the Midwest? What would tickle your fancy?
Well, number one, I'd like to have him have a real policy and basically come up with something that articulates getting this trillions of dollars that corporations have right now and making them start to hire Americans, build plants in this country, stop sending jobs overseas, propose changing the tax law that's going to penalize people that send jobs out of this country. And when he's on that bus tour, I wish he would go to Wisconsin and get involved in the Wisconsin rates, and he ought to go to Ohio and start mobilizing those people, because those are the people that are leading the fight that we're going on right now, the fight that's going on to get jobs back in America, to keep unions alive, and he's got to get involved in that. He's got to go to his base right now, and he's got to mobilize his base. He's got to mobilize working families to be involved in this fight for jobs in America. They are sitting on $3 trillion right now. You know, Merck, for instance, just announced they made record profits, and they're laying off 13,000 people. Does that make any sense? But that's what's going on. The more money they make, the more they lay off. Or they send it to Mexico, or they send it to China. And we've got to change that policy by having one that basically penalizes companies that send this out. We have to appeal to a nationalistic streak in the corporate people to say, hey, what are you doing laying off Americans? Make them ashamed of what they're doing to this country. They've laid off 8 million people just since the recession, and we've got to get those jobs back here. We've got to start turning this thing around, and he's not articulating that. He can't be afraid to go to Wisconsin. He can't be afraid to go to Ohio and say, I'm with you, I stand with rebuilding America, getting family jobs back, getting America going again, and mobilize his base instead of just going out and giving these airy speeches.
Well, it's a two-way street, right? So the president has to be more articulate about the things you say he should be articulate about, especially when it comes to distribution of resources behind those who need, who are the most vulnerable, who need it, and of course job creation. On the other hand, you've got a Congress that just went through this whole debate about the debt ceiling crisis. Do you have any confidence, A, that Congress will be supportive of any kind of job creation, and B, whether the president will be able to muster, if you call it the muscle and the power to go out and make that kind of argument in the way that you think he failed to do, perhaps during the debt crisis?
Well, what he's got to do is to go out and start mobilizing people right now. Maybe this is going to be about the 2012 election. This is the issue. Make this the issue in the election. You know, we just did this in upstate New York where we took back what it would basically be a Republican seat. It can be done. Let's expose them for what they are. The trickle-down economics, how they want to destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Make those the issues. That's how we're going to get Congress back so we can start getting an economic policy that'll put America back to work. You know, maybe he's not going to get it done in the next couple weeks, but he's got to start laying the basis right now for the 2012 election to say, hey, this is what this is about. This is how we're going to take it back. And maybe we can get the House back. We already have the Senate, and make it stronger. I don't think we should be in retreat right now because people are responding around the country. People are outraged what's happening, what they just saw, you know, with the hostage taking with regard to the debt ceiling, with regard to unemployment, and now with the FAA bill, on and on and on. We're going to see more of that because it's working. And he's got to turn that tide and say, hey, we're going to take back the Congress because we're going to run on a policy that's going to be what makes sense for working families. He's not doing that. He's got to be more articulate, and he's got to say, hey, we're taking back the Congress so I can put you back to work. That's a simple message, and he can do it.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffa. James Hoffa, president of the Teamsters Union, thank you so much for joining us.